Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry, episode 3. So in the last video, we saw Battler trying to make his rebound from yet another attempt at just giving on up. Because yes, this is difficult. I have to, truthfully state, even myself, I'm very much struggling to follow along with a whole lot of things that are happening here. But we gotta keep pushing on. I mean, that's really the whole idea here, is that it is a back and forth between Battler and Beatrice, which story is correct. We were sort of reminded of the fact that there are two renditions of this story that are going on. We're given multiple examples of how the story has been going on, and that is through Beatrice's perspective, which is, of course, going to be full of magic. We didn't see any of that in episode 1. That was a perspective through Battler mostly. So we need to be able to formulate some rebuttals, of course, but also we can quite literally just say, no, I don't believe that, and move on. We can come back to things, and I've been saying that for a while. These closed rooms, and very hard to, replace these magical battles with, proper events. There's been a lot of difficulties going on, but we can come back to them, and we can just assume that, things happened in a different way. The red text, of course, being something that was brought up in episode 2, I still have my doubts about, It's the structure of how things have been said. So yeah, while some quote-unquote factual events may be going on, we can also just maybe ignore them a little bit, not entirely, but keep them in the back of our minds. It's not Jover yet. We gotta push on. Forget what the adults expected. At least for us kids, these were supposed to be a fun couple days where the cousins deepen their friendship. Oh yeah, that was kind of something brought up in the very beginning of this episode, wasn't it? Where, the cousins were like, we're not going to be like our parents, we're going to be better, and we're going to be friends forever. So let's see how all that goes as we continue along. However, when we woke up, there was an unbelievably cruel reality waiting for us. Oh, yeah. Yeah, George and Jessica are definitely going to be feeling it. George, Anaki, and Jessica were crying over Shanun-chan and Kanun-kun's deaths. Right now, everyone who was alive had gathered in the lobby on the first floor of the guest house. This room existed? I've never seen this room before. This looks beautiful. The rest of the guest house doesn't even compare to this one room. What the hell? This is weird. Why are we in the guest house? Why didn't we all congregate over in the mansion? Like in the main big boy house? Is it because there's, dead bodies scattered about? I'm assuming that's got to be the case. Unbelievable, right? There were 18 until yesterday, and in one night, a third of that number had lost their lives. I eventually sobered up from my agitation, and along with my lack of sleep from being woken up so early in the morning, I was beginning to feel a faint sense of unreality. I want to think that this is some kind of bad dream. My cheap escapism keeps telling me that over and over. Maria had gone back to sleep on the sofa that Rosa was sitting in. Rather than her having nerves of steel, she probably genuinely hadn't had enough sleep. Okay, well, I guess Rudolph's got the gun in this one. All right, cool. Honestly, you know what? I don't trust anybody with the gun. I don't know. Natsuhi was okay with it, despite the back and forth with Ava. Rosa was a fucking, she was a danger with that gun. The adults were holding items from what was apparently grandfather's collection. Short barrel Winchester rifles. Rifles? There's more guns? Apparently relics from a time that he had been obsessed with westerns. There were 4 guns altogether. Great. Those had been split up among the 4 siblings, Uncle Kraus, Aunt Ava, my dad, and Aunt Rosa. Okay, well, fuck what I was saying, I guess. we may still have a problem, I don't know. But, I don't know, all the siblings being alive, that could maybe balance the craziness out a little bit. Paper boxes filled with bullets lay on the table, and the siblings were silently loading them.
こいつに触ってると触るなって怒鳴られてぶん殴られるような気がするぜ。ならよかったな。 いくら触ってももう殴られることはない。
Okay, so I'm assuming that they've already found out that all the servants and Kinzo are absolutely dead.
あのお父様がこんな最後を迎えるなんて。
Was he the one that was in the boiler room?
金蔵さんに限って普通に床で亡くなるようなことはないだろうと思っていましたが、それにしてもむごすぎる。
Okay, well, never mind.
ねえ、あれは本当にお父様なのかしら。私は別人の死体でごまかした替え玉を疑ってるんだけど。
いいえ、あれは間違いなくお父様です。
Oh, was it?
足の指をご覧になったでしょう。世間広しといえど両足の
Oh,
指が
that's
6本の
right.
人間はそうはいませんよ。
We learned about this back in episode 1, right? I think whenever we found his corpse in the boiler room.
でもいないとも言えない。多死症は珍しくない病気だと聞いたわ。大仕掛けの大好きな方なんでしょ。どこかで両足の指の数が自分と同じな遺体を手配したかもしれないわ。
バカバカしい。そんなこと何のためにするというのですか。
I mean, why would he do a lot of things? The man's a little cuckoo, you know?
普通の人にならわしもそう言うわ。しかしあのお父さんや。
Yeah, I mean, just straight up. It really is just that.
全くの口頭無形とは言い切れんのやないか。
焼死体は身元の確認が難しいという。何？歯型とか骨格とか。
Wait, so was he burned?
いろいろ調べる方法はあるはずさ。
Was he burned and then put in his bed? I think I'm getting like a conflicting, bit of information here. Unless I read something wrong, which is likely. I did just wake up and here I am getting ready to, really power through a big old recording session.
この台風じゃ船は来られないでしょうね。
Nope.
なら明日になるのかしら。
Maybe.
おそらく明日の9時にもう一度船が来てくれるでしょう。そこで警察に連絡できると思います。
私たちも、そして犯人も、つまりは台風が通り過ぎるまでこの島に閉じ込められたってわけね。
Yeah, it just kind of sucks because everybody basically meets their end at midnight. They don't really get an opportunity to fight out the entirety of a night going into the early morning of the next day or anything like that. It's over before they can even get to the morning, really. Just from our parents' conversation, you could probably figure out the general gist, but let's explain the situation anyway. Yeah, let's lay it out. First, early that morning, in various places throughout the mansion, a total of 6 corpses, including grandfather and all the servants, had been found one after another. First, grandfather had been in the boiler room completely... Okay, so he was there, alright. The servants had died, each shut up in the rooms throughout the mansion that had magic circles drawn on them. The cause of death for the servants was uncertain, but according to Dr. Nanjo's diagnosis, there was a high likelihood that they had been stabbed by something like a spear, or possibly shot with a gun. That was why the adults had started arming themselves with Winchesters. And what made the situation even more chaotic was the fact that the telephones had become unusable. It was unknown if lightning had caused them to break down or if the culprit had broken them. At any rate, since contact at the outside had been cut off, we couldn't reach the police. So until the typhoon passes and a boat comes tomorrow morning, we'll have to protect ourselves. After all, Rokkenjima is now isolated by the typhoon. And just as we're stuck on the island, so is the culprit. We're in our own little world yet again. It seemed that the adults had stayed up all night holding the family conference in the mansion's dining hall the whole time. And yet the crime had occurred in the mansion. So, right when the adults had been in an uproar over money, the murderer had been killing under the same roof. And they say Aunt Natsuhi's been strict about locking the doors and windows at night, and yet some suspicious person had entered and left the mansion. The adults had decided that the inside of the mansion was too large to be safe, so they had pulled out the guns and moved to the guest house where we had been. Okay, so I can kind of follow that train of thought. And, it's actually being a little bit smarter in a realistic sense. have everybody together in a smaller, more manageable space. And let us hope that no arguments pop up, because that usually pushes people to just then separate, and it's just easy killings from there. Utilize an excuse of magic, or just, there is a murderer somewhere around here and he gets an easy picking. However you want to describe it. Either way, whenever people are off on their own, it's bad news, practically game over. Which brings us to the present. Jorjanaki had begged to see Shanhun-chan's corpse, but the adults had refused, saying that he mustn't do so until the police arrived. That wasn't just because they wanted to seal all the rooms to preserve the scene. After all, the culprit who had killed 6 people was wandering about the mansion. To the Ushiromiya family right now, the mansion that should have been their home was now a danger zone that an unknown murderer could enter and leave at will. After all, it is a huge mansion. There are plenty of blind spots and dark places, and it's too vast to guarantee absolute safety with this number of people. Okay. I was wondering what happened to my sound there. But no, again, very smart, and I think it is probably the smartest decision that they've made in these versions of this story, to just stay here and don't go anywhere else. I don't know what the fuck they're doing for food. There might be some stuff in the lounge they're in, but let's just stay here. Relatively speaking, the guest house was much smaller. It had 2 above-ground stories. Something like 10 or so rooms. Apparently it had originally been constructed to serve as a small hotel, as we know, as part of the plan to turn this island into a resort. So it was easier to know what was going on everywhere inside it, and it'd be easier to keep safe. Goddamn. Sorry, again, just woke up. That's my excuse this time. It made for a good place to hole up in. Also, it was extremely likely that this mass murder of 6 people was a game. After all, the culprit had proclaimed so in a letter. I heard that a Western-style envelope with the family crest, just like the one Maria claimed to have received from Beatrice yesterday, had been found in the boiler room where grandfather's corpse had been discovered. That was what the letter said. So that there will be no misunderstandings, the game I seek is for everyone to try and solve the riddle of the epitaph, not for you to try and catch me. If you don't solve the riddle, the pitiful sacrifices will further increase in number. It would be wiser to spend your time solving the epitaph instead of searching for me. If no one can solve the riddle, no one will survive. This is probably the bluntest that this letter has ever been. Instead of just pushing them, just pushing their buttons, antagonizing, revenge and, emotions and whatever else, which definitely separated people in episode 2. No, this time, this is just straightforward. Solve this shit and nobody else has to die. If a person appears who can miraculously solve it, I will give them all the gold of the Golden Land, the Ushiromiya family, headship, and all of my power. I was the one who succeeded at the Ushiromiya family headship after Kinzo-sama. I look forward to seeing who will succeed to that headship after me. The Golden Witch Beatrice. The riddle of this epitaph was that thing. That strange epitaph written by the portrait of the witch on display in the hall of the mansion. Grandfather was the one who had written it, and the person who solved it would supposedly be given the inheritance or the hidden gold or something like that. Ever since it was first put on display there several years ago, the relatives had secretly tried to solve that riddle, despite saying on the surface that the whole idea was silly. However, up until today, no one had solved it. We were once again being urged to solve that unintelligible riddle, and this time, we were faced with the threat that we'd all be killed if we didn't solve it. If that wasn't a game, what else could it be? No, it does sound like a game, doesn't it? More so than ever, like some crazy Saw shit. The bold opinion that we should search the premises for the culprit did come up once. However, there was a good chance they were armed, and there might not be just one of them. And while they might have been able to kill more than 6 people, they had stopped at 6. The opinion that won out in the end was that we should avoid needlessly antagonizing the culprit and hole up in a safe place while we waited for the police to arrive. And, you know, why not use our time to, you know, solve this shit? Might as well. Get some ideas flowing. After the adults carefully checked that the doors and windows in the guest house were locked, they set up camp in the lobby. As they loaded their guns to distract themselves from the tension, their expressions showed that they were already fatigued from this long day, which had still barely begun. Yeah, they've been awake for more than 24 hours for sure, and now they're going to have to stay awake even longer. There was nothing for me to do. Now all I could do was be taught how to use a gun, to prepare for the off chance of something happening that led to an excess of guns. That's fine. Just obediently stay there, me and the rest of you. Well, no shit, it's gotta be 6 people. That's the only way that this structure works. If it wasn't 6, like if it was 5 or 7, then the entire pattern has been thrown off. You know, dead game, basically. Alright, let's read our character profiles for those that are dead. If I can jump over to the human side. I have to click the witch side, then I can go to the human side. It's weird. Also, did I read this before? I don't think I did. I think this is new. So Virgilia, now that she has a name, retired endless witch and Beatrice's master, made proper use of the endless magic and dedicated her life to the happiness and smiles of people, taught Beatrice the endless magic, and retired believing that Beatrice would devote herself to people in the same way. As well as being Beatrice's master, she was also the consulting mage of Beatrice's old home. For this reason, Virgilia interacted with her in the manner of a servant. It is said that this was responsible for causing Beatrice's egotism and excesses. I have more fucking things to read. I don't know why I backed out of that. Alright, human side. We've got 6 corpses, and they're all lined up beautifully down there. It's all the servants and Kinzo. We'll start with Kinzo. Discovered as a burnt corpse from the incinerator in the underground boiler room. As there were no signs that he fought to get out of the incinerator, it seems reasonable to think that he was burned after he was murdered. Too bad this time, game over right at the very start. We have Genji, corpse discovered in the second floor VIP room. The murder weapon is assumed to be a gun or spear-shaped object. In appreciation for his many years of service, Genji shall be permitted to sleep in the VIP room. Oh, how thoughtful, you know? How gracious. So Shanun, corpse discovered in the parlor on the first floor. For Shanun, the parlor, whose view of the rose garden was beautiful on sunnier days. We have Kanun, corpse discovered in the chapel. The chapel for Kanun. Even after death, keep on protecting the place important to the Lord. Goda, corpse discovered in the third floor servants' quarters. So he wanted to gain Kinzo's favor. The room next to the study is appropriate for him. Well, that is also thoughtful. Goddamn. Kumasawa, corpse discovered in the second floor guest room. The seldom used guest room on the second floor was her secret napping spot. Okay, there we go.
しかも今回はじいさまと使用人が全部まとめてときたもんだ。
おそらくあの子は前回のゲームでのあなたの指し手を慎重に研究したのでしょう。そしてあなたが最初に疑うと高い確率で推定される駒を最優先で奪ったに違いありませんよ。
I like how Virgilia is kind of just with us now to try and help us solve this shit.
筋だな。
I mean, it's nice that we have somebody else on our side. You know, two minds might be greater than one in this case, especially one that is tied onto the side of magic.
前回も前々回も屋敷に精通し、マスターキーを持ち歩く使用人たち全員は常に最高順位で疑わしい人物だった。前回のゲームの例えばジェシカの密室がいい例だ。
Yeah, that was a really fucky one.
使用人が犯人であることを認めさえすれば、あんなのは密室でも何でもない。
故にあの子はそこを真っ先に切りに来た。あなたがやがて逃げ込むであろう退路を真っ先に塞ぎに来たのでしょう。
Yeah, so there we go. We can't really use that idea. So they were all locked in, probably with their keys. I think I brought up this prediction in the past video because they're basically trying to cover off all their soft spots that were potentially there in episode 2. So the servants could be blamed. Well, now all the servants are dead. There's no other way out of these rooms. The doors were locked, the keys were in them. So how did a murderer go in, do it, and get out, right? Like, it's impossible unless we want to start going against the red text. That's the only way, is to basically just ignore what we have been told is facts.
ベアトはすでに赤で、この島には19人以上いないと宣言している。それはつまり諦めろってことだ。もう俺は18人の誰かを疑わざるを得ない。
あの子はその18人の駒を全て奪い切った上で、存在しないはずの19人目として降臨し、
Which is, it's going to push us more towards the magic side
あなたに自ら
there,
が魔女であることを認めさせる手で来るでしょう。
which we don't want to
魔
go
法
with
を見
that.
せつけることで強引に屈服させる。あの子にさせるのは成功法だけなのですから。
上等だ。もうハッタリは通用しねえぜ。
気をつけて。まやかしは魔女の最も得意とするところ。
Yeah.
あの子が何を言おうと、あなたが信じる真実を決して脅かすことなどできないのです。それを忘れないで。
お、そう何度も同じ手が通用してたまるかってんだ。出てこいよ。ベアトリーチェ、おっ始めようぜ。
すでに勝負のテーブルに着席しておるわ。わらわの手番もすでに終了しておる。
Oh shit. That means she's going to be expecting something from us.
マダムを敵に回すことになるとは厄介ですね、お嬢様。手の内をだいぶ読まれますよ。
構わん。お師匠様の指し手などすでに時代遅れの古典よ。恐るるに足りぬわ。
あなたが私の教えた古典以上の何をさせるのか期待していますよ、ベアトリーチェ。
At least we've got like somewhat of a proper 2v2 now.
いいのか、バトラー。魔女を否定するそなたが魔女を軍師につけても。
I mean, might as well at this point.
くだらねえ挑発は無用だ。こいつは俺の相談役。いや、セコンドだ。ガチンコで殴り合うのは俺とお前だってことには何の変化もない。
わかっておる。よちよちのお前には自転車にも補助輪が必要だろう。
Sometimes it's difficult,
好き
okay?
にするがよい。さあ始めろ。お前の手番だ。
Okay, yeah, what do we say about the, what do we got to say about these closed rooms and everything?
バルギリア、早速頼む。
最初の遺体発見はシャノンから屋敷内の1階客間より発見されました。
Yeah, and they had to break a window in order to get in there because it was fully sealed off.
扉と窓は施錠され密室を構成していました。
ベアトに説明要求。密室の定義を再確認。
密室の定義は内外の出入りが一切隔絶された室内を指す。当然内外からの一切の侵入脱出はおろか干渉もできない。それは包括的に隠し扉の否定、外部干渉の余地一切の否定を含む。
Okay, so I want to bring up something that I addressed in episode 2. So there's this whole idea of inside and outside, that there is no way to get to the outside. No hidden doors that lead you through a passage that gets you back to the outside. Those are off limits. But I don't think anything has been addressed in terms of hidden doors that don't necessarily lead to the outside, but they lead elsewhere. Basically, a secret hiding spot to utilize until the closed room has been reopened. That's the only idea that I can really bring to the surface here, just based off of the, the clues and what's being said. But I may be trying to look a little too deep in words that probably do fully satisfy what they're trying to get at here, and I'm just nitpicking. I don't know.
以後この定義をベアトリーチェの密室定義と呼称する。
細部確認。外部干渉の余地の定義とは。
外部から釣り糸やら長くて細い棒やらなどを使って直接的に干渉するあらゆる余地だ。つまり 扉や窓にはそのような小細工を混ぜる隙間すらもないと判断せよ。
Nothing feasible could get in or out.
仮に隙間がなくてもリモコンなどの電波は干渉できるはずだぜ。
よかろう。電波などそれに類する遠隔操作技術も干渉不可能であると定義に追加する。
Nothing physical and nothing radio waves or anything like that.
客間には内線電話もあるぜ。それと連動した仕掛けは遠隔操作にはならねえのか？
電話はすでに使用不能だろうが。
Yeah, but when were they, when were they not unusable? When did they go down? That's what I want to know. Not that they probably had too much of an effect on things here, but you never know.
ああ、もう面倒だ。それも含めようぞ。直接間接のあらゆる方法で室外よりの密室内への干渉は不可能だ。
声やノックは密室に入らずに外部から干渉できるはずだぜ。
密室であっても声をかけることやノックは不可能ではなかろう。意思疎通の可否は密室の定義に反しない。
つまり外部との伝達方法までは途絶していると定義できないんだな。
So communication is still good.
そうなります。
了解したぜ。
Just not over the phone, but just verbal.
シャノンちゃんの客間
Physically
は
verbal.
そのベアトリーチェの密室定義を満たすってんだな。
その通りだ。
密室定義了解した。ワルキリア続けてくれ。
はい。シャノンの遺体はマスターキー1本を所持。発見した親族がこれを回収。
ベアトに復唱要求。今回のマスターキーの本数は？
前回と同じ。
5, right?
各使用人が1本ずつで5本だ。
ってことは密室にはまだならねえってわけさ。マスターキーはまだ4本余ってる。
Unless they were with all the
シ
servants.
ャノンちゃんを殺害後4本の鍵のいずれかで施錠するだけの話だ。
その通りでございます。そして見つかったのはマスターキーだけではありませんよ。
はい。遺体のすぐ傍らに紋章入りの要
And
求
this was the
封筒。
very straightforward letter that we got.
中に手紙はなく、
Oh, wait, no,
2階
never mind.
客室の鍵が入っていました。
Oh, was this shit a fucking like trail
2
system?
階客室の鍵。それは2階客室の扉をマスターキー以外に唯一開けることができる鍵だと。
問題ないぞ。そしてマスターキーと違いその1本しかない。
つまりある特定の部屋を開けるにはその1本しかないというわけです。
これはつまり次は2階客室へ行けというメッセージなのか？
They're gonna snake through all of the rooms that
大人たちは
contain
2階客室へ移動したな。
the sacrifices of the first Twilight. They're going to slowly but surely
2階
find
客
out
室
about
の
all of
扉
them.
もまた施錠され、魔法陣が描かれていました。親族はシャノンの遺体脇より入手したその鍵によって開錠。室内にて熊沢の遺体を発見。室内は密室。定義はベアトリーチェの密室定義に準拠。熊沢はマスターキー1本を所持。
And there was
これ
another
を親
letter
族が回
or
収。
another envelope with a key in it.
そしてシャノン同様に遺体の傍らに養鶏封筒を発見。中には3階控室の鍵が。親族は3階控室へ移動。
そして
Basically the same thing over and
3
over
階
again.
控室の扉にも魔法陣でさらに施錠されていて、
はい。室内にてゴーダの遺体を発見。室内は密室。ベアトリーチェの密室定義に準拠。ゴーダはマスターキー1本を所持。これを親族が回収。そしてこれまで同様に紋章入りの養鶏封筒を発見。中より2階貴賓室の鍵が。親族は2階貴賓室へ移動。
Okay, so what I'm seeing here, this is kind of throwing away the idea that I had, I'm pretty sure. But this is also showing that the keys, the one single, individual keys that respectively go to all these rooms that the master keys cannot work on, or maybe they could, I don't know. Either way, they're here, and they basically are showing that there was no way for somebody to leave these items here, lock the door, and, you know, be outside of the room. It was already closed whenever they were in it. So how'd they get out? The only way that my theory could work is if there were actually 6 fucking people that were killing these guys. Which is a little, you know, unlikely. That they're all, you know, in hiding in these rooms, waiting for the closed room to become open again. So it's a little unrealistic.
それを開けるマスターキーはまだ何本もあるではないか。律儀にマスターキー以外の固有の鍵も申請している。
気に入らねえ展開だぜ。だが展開は読めてきた。この調子で6人続いてくってわけか。
はい、その通りです。
Does it loop back around to Shannon as well?
2階貴賓室にて源氏の遺体を発見。マスターキー1本を回収。地下ボイラー室の鍵を発見。
And then we go there.
地下ボイラー室へ移動。地下ボイラー室にて金蔵の遺体を発見。礼拝堂の鍵を発見。礼拝堂に移動。礼拝堂にてカノンの遺体を発見。マスターキー1本を回収。1階客間の鍵を発見。以上で6名の遺体発見の再構築を終了します。
補足です。金蔵の遺体の傍らで発見された養鶏封筒には手紙の内容はすでにご確認の通り、
So that's where that letter was.
自分の謎を解くよう改めて催促する内容です。
ってことはなんだよこれ。最後のカノン君のところに一番最初のシャノンちゃんの客間の鍵があったってことは密室が6つ呪術つなぎになってるってことなのか。
その通り。
Okay, no, that is actually pretty interesting. The key that would be required for each room was actually, you know, like it was this lovely pattern here, making it more and more impossible for these rooms to, 1, be accessed, and 2, be locked and be able to move on to the next one. It's an infinite loop. It cannot be broken, especially with the quantity of keys here.
それぞれを解錠する鍵はそれぞれ隣り合う密室によって閉じ込められている。つまり6つの密室が1つの巨大密室を形成し。
This is actually really fucked up, but I like it. It's really just taking what we've already seen so many times already and just blowing it up into some fucking programmer's mess.
ちなみに6つの部屋の扉や窓はいずれも普通。オートロックのような鍵を使用せず施錠できるような仕掛けは存在しない。
Okay, I think we've heard this before. However,
どうだよ。綺麗なもんだろ。
Okay, it's worth noting that yes, this is a red text fact or whatever, but this wasn't included in the definition of a closed room.
ですからお嬢様、そのあたりに品がございます。
Yeah, please on correcting her on that. We gotta fix that shit up. When Renove rebuked her, Beato stuck her tongue at him without showing any signs of shame.
悪い悪い。
She's such a child.
ついついバトラと遊んでる
It's crazy.
上機嫌になってしまうのでな。それでバトラ、お前の指し手はどうなんだよ。
No, it's actually really, really smart, taking the idea that we've seen a whole bunch of times and just making it this convoluted mess.
特に思いつかないんなら、
It hurts my brain to even start to think about.
遺体を運ばせて、魔法にてすべての扉を封じるところを特別に見せてやってもいいんだぜ。
好きにしろ。お前の主張する魔法説として拝聴しとく。だが俺はお前の主張とは全く異なる人間。お前の主張に一切干渉されることなく主張することができる。それはつまりお前のざれ言に耳を貸す必要は何もないってことさ。
Yeah, I mean, we honestly can't ignore a whole lot of this.
好きに魔法の杖でも振るって七色の魔法で扉を閉めるところでも実演してろってんだ。隣でそのうちガマの油と万能包丁の実演も始まるぜ。ワルギリア、事件現場を再構築。あらを探すぜ。全員は間違いなく死亡してるのか。 誰かが死んだふりしてんならこんなの密室でも何でもね。
I think
南條
Dr.
は
Nanja, yeah, I was
全員
gonna
の
say.
死亡を確認。
Yeah, so that solves that one.
ただし誤信律の否定は悪魔の証明により不可能。つまり誰かが生きているのを南條が見逃した可能性をゼロにすることはできません。
Honestly, if Romeo and Juliet has taught me anything, is that people are fucking liars.
来たな。悪魔の証明か。
So yeah, something that appears to be the way it is could possibly not be.
だがそいつを
Even
ぶ
by
っ
a
た切る
professional,
剣
you
は
know?
存在する。
Something else could be at work here. That's still in the realm of, you know,
なんだよ
realism, sort of.
わらわをのけ者にしてわらわは対戦者であると少しは構えたように。
What is with Beatrice? I really don't understand this woman sometimes. It's like she's wacko and crazy and all that, but you can tell that she wants the attention, you know. They are opponents. They're supposed to be yelling at each other. But here he is having this deep ass discussion with Regilia instead.
本来チェスを対戦するのにあたり相手とのコミュニケーションは不要です。
Yeah, you never have to even talk to the other person in games like those.
お嬢様は指し手以外のコミュニケーションによって煙に巻いていた。それに惑わされないということはつまりこういうことなのでしょう。
Should have been more friendly, Beatrice.
なぜだか納得がいかぬ。
お嬢様はチェスを挑んでいるはずではないのですか？
それもそうだが。
Beatrice puffed out her cheeks as though to say, I don't know why, but I don't like it.
警察未介入の現場につき人間側からの検証は限界があります。厳密な死亡確認のため復唱要求することを推奨します。
よっしゃ、ここで叩くぜ。復唱要求だ。被害者6人は全員死亡している。
Yeah, let's get the full confirmation here.
お嬢様、復唱要求が出ておりますよ。
おい、ぼんやりするな。
I mean, she doesn't have
復
to.
唱拒否か。
She has refused it in the past, but this could be just for the reason of like she just doesn't want to, which could also confuse us. It could give us the wrong idea.
ここからが戦闘開始だ。
What the fuck?
おったとったすまぬすまぬ。いいぞ、応じるぞ。
Did I blank and miss something there? Did he do something? I don't know. All right, let's see what she has to say here.
金蔵源氏、シャノン、カノン、ゴーダ、熊沢の6人は死亡している。
何をぼんやりしてるんだか。よし、まずは一つ引き出したぞ。死んだふりって王道はまず否定されたな。
もはや手加減などせぬぞ。好きなだけ来るがより。
I didn't think she was really going easy on us before.
次々斜め切りにしてくれるわ。
She's a tough opponent.
続けて復唱要求。6つの部屋には誰も隠れていない。俺たちが認識していない人物の存在を否定してみせろ。
Okay, so I want to bring something up. My ridiculous theory, which is probably way off track now. I want to, you know, separate it from this idea. Not necessarily that people were hiding in that room, but more so there was like another room that wasn't connected to the outside to be constituted as, you know, still on the inside. It's not on the outside, but it is a completely different room. I just wanted to, you know, clear that up, but I think it's very unlikely with this ridiculous looping situation that we have here, that it's very unlikely that people are hiding anywhere.
大ずる。6つの部屋には誰も隠れていない。
In the rooms themselves, there is no one hiding. We can clear that up. All right.
これで6人だけの缶詰は確定だな。そして死んだふりもない。
どうするどうする。人間にはもはやどうしようもないであろうが、おとなしく。わらわが
There's got to be something very obvious that we're missing here.
ひざまずいて拝見しろよ。
Something very, very obvious. So in episode 2, we were able to go against the first closed room in the chapel by actually piecing out the trail that the killer actually took by utilizing time. I would assume time was like the big, you know, aspect there, and also just being a little sneaky about things. But here, do we have any of that? do we have a situation where, you know, specific times and places had any impact in how this all went down?
寝言言ってろ。さらに復唱要求だ。6人の死亡は即死である。
即死？
Okay. No, that's a good one.
どういう意味だそれは。
If you have somebody dying, they can actually prepare the next room.
犠牲者の一人が瀕死の状態で部屋まで逃げ延び
Or that. Yeah.
内側から施錠して密室を作った後
That's kind of what I meant. I don't know why I said it the way I
という
did.
ことですよ。
But no, like they can move around and not necessarily be placed. The murder may not have happened in these rooms. I guess that's another red text thing that we could say or get out of her was that the killings happen in these rooms. She won't be able to say it because it won't align with her story.
密室殺人の古典ですか。致命傷を与え、しばらく後に死ぬことを確実とした場合、犠牲者が殺人者から逃れるために部屋にこもり、
Yeah, they created the room
施
themselves.
錠後に死亡したなら、
But this is supposedly a situation
密室が構成されることはありえます。
based on the magical side, the magical story. They were placed in these rooms. We know for a fact that they were all killed. Well, not all of them. The majority, 4 of them were killed up in Kinzo's study. 1 was killed out in the garden, and the other was killed in the kitchen.
その可能性を否定す
But
る
none of these areas are being used for
赤き真実
where the bodies now are.
6人は即死であったことを宣言する必要がありますよ。
よかろうよかろう。赤き宝刀にて切り伏せよう。
This is always fun.
6人は即死であった。即死とはつまり攻撃を受けて即座に行動不能になったという意味だ。
Okay. Does that follow what we've seen, though?
まあ、完全な意味での死亡には数秒もしくは数分をかけたかもしれん。
Okay.
だがいずれにせよ自らの意思で何かの行動を取ることは完全に不可能であった。その意味において即死と断言できる。
Because I was thinking, okay, in Kumasawa's case, based on the magical story, it was that big-ass battle, but she was actually killed way earlier on.
ここまでは古典の確認だ。お前との密室対決はここからだぜ。犯人は内側にいないなら外にいる。そして外からどうにかして彼らを殺したんだ。
何を血迷うか。
No, I mean, that's how it had to happen.
密室イコール外部からの殺害は不可能であろうが、故に魔法殺人しかありえない。
いいや違うね。殺人は現に起こった。イコール密室ではないが正しいのさ。お前がどう煙に巻こうと、これは断じて密室じゃない。密室に見えるだけのまがいものだ。
Ooh, I love the confidence that is coming from his voice there.
室内には犠牲者しかおらず、
Right.
それ以外の人物は室内には存在しておりません。
Okay, no, that's understandable.
お嬢様の密室定義により、外部からの遠隔殺人も明確に否定されておりますよ。
まあちな、遠隔殺人の定義は広大だぜ。何も部屋の外から釣り糸を引っ張って、そんなのばかりじゃねえ。例えばトラップだって立派な遠隔殺人だ。
トラップ？
Oh, okay.
ほう、それは何か。
No, I see what he's saying here.
彼らにあらかじめ決められた部屋に入り、内側から施錠して自ら密室を作り出すように指示を出す。そして室内には彼らがそれとは知らないトラップが仕掛けられており、
No, this is actually really
彼ら
clever.
は殺された。
It's very unlikely, but it's
これなら
possible.
矛盾は生じない。
問題ありません。現状と整合
I
し
say
ま
it's
す。
unlikely because, you know, who in the right mind would actually follow instructions like this?
当方も問題ありませんよ。お嬢様の密室定義にも抵触しません。
なんだその間抜けな推理は。いずれの室内にも不審なものは発見されなかったぞ。そのトラップはどのような形状なのか、どこに隠してあってどう作動
Okay,
し
but
たとい
that's
う
not
のか。
important. That's not an important detail.
それを6人分、客間、客室、控室、貴賓室、ボイラー室、 礼拝堂の6つで説明してみせよ。どうだ？できまい。
I don't think that's an important detail that we need to state.
反論拒否。それを説明する必要は
Yeah,
ね。
exactly.
にもかかわらず、俺の主張は揺るがない。
なんだと？
ベアトリーチェ、悪魔の証明ですよ。そのトラップの形状を説明できないことがすなわちトラップ否定の理由にはなり得ない。
うまい。強引ながら見事な一手です。
We're really utilizing the tools that have been provided to us in this one. Devil's Proof obviously coming up in episode 2, but the fact that there's another side to it, the Raven, I forget what it's called, is here as well. Both sides can be utilized to really attack the other. We don't need to proceed further. That's actually what's been holding Battler up, I feel, in a lot of cases, is that he gets his buttons pushed in such a way that he feels like he needs to explain how everything went down. Not necessarily.
こいつすっかり手慣れおって。
チェック。発見できていない殺人トラップ X により、この密室殺人は成立可能だ。
赤き真実にてそのチェックを切る。
Yeah, let's hear it.
6人はトラップで殺されてはいない。
Okay, what were they killed by?
トラップの定義は？
あれだ。犠牲者が勝手に引っかかって発動するやつとかだ。それだけじゃない。
Yeah, I mean, we can't use the definition that it was remotely activated because that would be an interference with the definition.
リモコンで発動するとか、タイマーで発動するとか、そういうのもろもろ全部含めたやつだ。
No, that wouldn't work.
仕掛け人が直接関与することなしに殺人を遂行できる全ての仕掛けという定義でよろしいかと思いますよ。
どうだ、切り返したぞ。人間にこの密室が破れてたまるか。
お前も勝つために必死だな。
何？どういう意味だ？
お前は自分の存在を俺に認めさせようと必死に戦ってる。今まで俺は一方的にお前にいじられてるだけだと思ってた。しかし実際は違った。お前もまた俺の切り返しに必死に抗い。
No, but of course.
自分俺はよ、今ようやく実感してるぜ。
This isn't torture inflicted on me over whether I will surrender or not.
俺とお前の対等な戦いなんだ。さて、面白くなってきたぜ。6人は密室で死に、部外者は中に誰もいない。そして外部からはちょっかいは一切出せず、トラップもないときた。これまでの俺だったら、これはもう魔法の仕業しかありえねえだろうと思うだろうよ。
But now,
このタイミングでお前におかしな魔法を実演されたら、そりゃ屈服もしてただろうさ。これがお前の得意戦術だ。俺の指し手を全て迎撃しきり、俺が万策尽きたと膝をつく。心の防御力が弱るその瞬間に、これ見よがしにおかしな魔法を見せつけて。
昔から短気な性分で勝ちの目が見えると焦る悪い癖は相変わらずです。
I think we've got somebody that's a little bit more calm and collected on our side.
お嬢様はお預けができない性分ですから。
Which I'd like to argue that of Renove for Beatrice.
うるさいうるさいぞ。バトラの手番であるぞ。そなたが進めたトラップの駒はわらわが赤にて切り捨てた。次は何を繰り出すのか、存分に来るがよい。
おっ、トラップまで潰され、一見こいつは完全な密室犯罪に見える。
Okay, but what else do we got?
だからこそここでチェス盤をひっくり返すぜ。
来たな、そなたの得意技よ。何をどうひっくり返せるというのか。
How are we dancing on the chessboard this time?
ああ、見せてやる。いかにして密室の中の6人を外から殺すかを考えるんじゃない。ああ、ダメだダメだ、全然ダメだ。そうさ、どうやって外から殺すかじゃない、どうやって中で死んで密室にするかなんだ。そうさ、これが答えなのさ。犠牲者6人の中に犯人が含まれていたと考えれば、この密室は極めて容易に説明できる。
Can it actually? even with this loop?
何バカな。その6人は死んだとはっきりわらわは赤で言ったはず。
死んだのは6人、犠牲者は殺された5人、もう1人は自殺だったと仮定すればこの密室は打ち破れる。
I mean, yeah, you can still also assume that there are more people here that are, you know, wanting this to be pulled off. More bad guys on the inside here. It's just one of them had to go in order to make this work.
確かに犯人が最後の密室に自ら入って施錠し、自らの命を絶てば、この連鎖密室は成立します。
犯人の自殺、普通では考えられない一手ですが、考えられないから存在しないは存在しない。そしてその動機を立証する義務は彼にない。魔女とのチェスでしか使えない実に力強い一手。
Now I'm trying to think, okay, if there is a culprit, even it should, at least one, I think in this case there'd have to be more than one to make this all work, because there's going to be more killings eventually. But if one of them actually was a culprit, I'm trying to think who has survived previously, or maybe who had died and has died now again, that was able to pull off this same sort of idea of having to off themselves this time in order for things to look a little bit more convincing. I'm not really sure.
まあ、動機がないとは言い切れませんね。例えば、金蔵は余命があとわずかと宣告されています。
But I guess, you know, let's not think about all that. Let's see if this idea even works. メッセージとしたという動機づけも不可能ではないかもしれません。お嬢様、こちらの手番ですよ。
まさか死者の尊厳を踏みにじってまで犯人を生み出してくるとはな。こやつ血も涙もない男よ。
死者を犯人に仕立て上げるこの非道なる一手は、前回のゲームでお前がカノン君を陥れた一手だ。
Yeah, actually that is true.
この手でお前に一矢報いることが、ゲームは異なるが、あの時のカノン君へのためだ。
Kanun actually was set up to be a culprit of sorts. He was already dead, but in a different way, he was, you know, thought to be of as alive because nobody could find him.
俺はあの時のカノン君の無念を晴らした。
That was actually kind of fucked up.
ここで手を休める義理はありませんよ。全員の死因が自殺でないことを確認すべきです。復讐の要求を推奨します。
ああ、だが自殺なんて甘い言い方じゃ追い詰められねえぜ。ベアト、こいつで詰めだ。復讐要求、6人は全員他殺である。
Ooh, this is a good one right here.
これは痛いですね。
I do like the idea of them thinking of Kinzo as a possible, you know, choice of being a culprit. I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot of time, and the man is fucking insane thinking that his alchemy and whatever he's been doing is actually real. So he may have thought of this cult shit as something that he needed to do in order to revive Beatrice or whatever the fuck. So this could have just been the acts of a crazy person at work. He was the only one that died in a different way in this case, right? And she refuses to actually say anything here. Well, also on the magical side, Kinzo did burn up and he wasn't exactly like against it. He like accepted it.
ああ、どうしたよ。6人が殺されたんだろう。最も単純な一番最初の前提の確認でしかないぜ。復讐できねえのか。
復讐を拒否する理由は特にない。
Huh, okay.
ここでの復讐拒否はリザインと同じ意味だぜ。チェックメイト。6人の中に犯人がいて密室構築後に自殺を図った。以上だ。
待て。いや、その言う
No, say it. I think this actually might be a big piece here.
望み通り赤を行使するぞ。6人は誰も自殺していない。
Okay.
どうだ、これで満足か。
So suicide wasn't utilized at all.
切り返したぞ。 切り返した。
Even with Kinzo, who burnt alive.
なんだよ。言えるじゃねえかよ。だがおかしいな。なんであんなに狼狽してるんだ。
気のせいよ。わらわも今回は必死でな。そうそう心にゆとりもないのだ。深く気にするでない。
要求した副賞が改ざんされていますよ。ごまかされないように。
Wait, what? Hold on now. Hold on. None of the 6 committed suicide.
ダメみたいですよ、お嬢様。
そうか。6人全員他殺とは言ってない。
Aha, okay.
6人全員自殺にあらずと。こいつということは他殺でも自殺でもない人間が混じっているということだ。ああ、わかったぜ、わかったわかった。これが真相だ。
Hell yeah, Battler, let's see it.
6人の中に潜む犯人 X は5人を殺害後密室を構築した。そしてそこから何かの方法で逃れるか隠れるかするつもりだったんだ。ところが事故った。本人すらも想定しない理由により事故死し、自ら望まない密室殺人を構築したんだ。これで決まりだぜ、ベアトリーチェ。
Interesting.
チェックメイトだ。
An accidental death. It's not suicide, and it's not homicide.
その程度でわらわが追い詰められると思うか。この程度でリザインを叫ぶものか。その愚かなチェックメイト、わらわの赤き砲塔にて何度でも叩き切ってくれようぞ。
Okay, let's see it
6人の
then.
中に事故死は。
Oh.
失礼。東方、ここで作戦タイムを消
No,
耗いた
that
しま
would have
す。
been a really big reveal there. She wasn't beginning to say that in red.
しばしのご猶予をお許しください。
正当な要求です。問題ないかと。
おう、強化するぜ。俺も今まで散々そいつをもらってる。今度はお前がそれを使う番だぜ。
Damn, the
あ
confidence
り
is
がとうご
good.
ざいます。さあお嬢様、こちらへ。そして心の中で静かに数字を100数え。
Renove quickly covered Beato's mouth with his hand as she grew thoroughly panicked and agitated, suspending the game. He pulled Beato away, supposedly to hold a strategy conference. I think that might be it for this little round here. But that's so interesting.
くそ。
That is very, very interesting.
あの悪魔の執事め。ベアトが熱くなってる今が追い込む絶好のチャンスだったんだが。
Beato normally acted like she was graceful and above it all, but she actually had a really short temper and got mad easily. Her usual intellect had less of a voice when she got excited.
ロノウェは冷静ですね。
No, he's a smart man.
おそらくあ
He's
の子
keeping her in
に
check.
頭を冷やす時間を与えたのでしょう。
Sort of in a similar way that we now have Virgilia here to keep us in check.
あの子はあなたのチェックを外すことに意地になり、いくつかの大駒をやすやすと見捨てようとしていた。第一の番など、所詮は前哨戦。あの子は引き際を誤りかけた。
つまり俺のチェックメイトは成立したのか。
あの子は赤を宣言しかけていました。
But she didn't.
チェックメイトにはまだならないでしょう。しかしおそらく頭を冷やしたあの子はリザインを宣言するに違いありません。
So what was about to be fully confirmed is that all of these deaths were, you know, based on homicide. Somebody actually killed them, which means there was direct contact that actually caused them their fatal wounds or whatever and put them in a state of them dying. No traps, no suicide, no accidental deaths.
まさかあの負けず嫌いがか。
ええ、負け戦は1秒でも早く兵を引き上げ、いかに損失を減らすかが肝要です。難しいのはそれが負け戦であるかどうかを測ること。
The thing is, even on the magical side, we can kind of think of the, I'm trying to think this over, we can sort of think of these deaths as all homicides, but everybody pretty much had a different killer. Beatrice supposedly killed Kinzo, you know, set him on fire. Kanun was killed by Genji. Genji also killed Shanun. Genji was killed by Renove. And then Goda was killed by the Seven Sisters. And then, similar to Kinzo, Beatrice took care of Kumasawa. Because, you know, of Vergilia here. So what does that tell us? That there is a actual chain that formed in Beatrice's story of there always being somebody that killed another. What can that translate to here in reality? I feel like it's right there, you know, just something is right there. There were no accidental deaths, no suicides, nothing. So how do we translate that into what really went down? What we saw to what really went down?
でもこれはあなたの勝ちだと判断して良いでしょう。
Now, I'd say that Battler deserves a W for this one.
大きな損失を踏みとどまったようですが、それでもかなりのダメージを与えたに違いありません。その傷の深さはあの子の狼狽ぶりから十分理解できたはずですよ。
だな。これ以上いじめたら泣き出しちまいそうだぜ。
No, this was good. I feel like this was actually really strong. As we talked, Renove returned with Beato, who wore a meek expression. She didn't yet have her usual bold smile, but it looked like the blood wasn't rushing to her head anymore.
よう、お前の手番だぜ。次の一手は決まったかよ。
デザインだ。この場はお前に勝ちを譲る。
Alright, there we go. Finally, we get a big old dub just like in episode 2, I would argue. Beato told me that, frankly, it seems she had taken a far-sighted view, as though saying, if you want to laugh, then laugh. Honestly, Battler got a little bit of a W earlier in this episode, I think, as well. It was a bit of a killjoy, and I lost my desire to deliver the final blow. But now we can move past this this ridiculous looped closed room deal.
互いが相手を否定できないイーブンって意味だからな。負けってよりは引き分けって意味で受け取っとくぜ。
気持ち悪い同情などいらぬわ。この場はわらわの負けだと言っておる。そなたには雨に濡れた犬を、さらに棒で叩く趣味があるというのか。
ねえよ、お前と違ってな。
Even though she ridiculed me horribly when I showed signs of defeat, this is the best that she's got when the tables are turned. I did feel that was pretty cowardly of her, but I decided to act with dignity as the victor and let it slide. It's so interesting, the way that she actually does back out from saying certain things, where it's as if, yeah, there are complete huge-ass holes in her story. She's just telling the rest of the story as if it was no problem. A straight line going through all of these giant ass holes that are so close. You don't want to stray off that straight line into those holes, or else your story becomes weaker and weaker. But why is that? You know, if your story is the supposed truth, why does it have these giant ass holes, right? That's something that I never really thought of before, but why is it that she feels like she needs to actually back out of these ideas? She can't fully explain the facts whenever we, you know, present these rebuttals. It's interesting. Beato resigned. That's the one result of the first Twilight. Beatrice couldn't counter my move of one of the six was the culprit, and that person died in an accident. No, she probably couldn't have could have countered it, but for some strategic reason she admitted defeat. It felt less like I had won, and more like I had let her slip away at the last second. Again, 2v2 here. I think we're a little bit more balanced than before, and that's good for the both of us. In a chess match with a witch, battles can be fought solely with pieces known as X, which require no detailed explanations. Thanks to the Devil's Proof, I could create as many strange fictions as I wanted and use them as fighters in our argument. But that only works in a chess match with a witch. In our human world, you can't use such abstract theories to explain things. The first twilight was a chain of 6 closed rooms. It certainly may have been possible for a human. Byato wasn't able to deny all possibilities. However, I don't have a clue who committed the crime, or why, or how they actually did it. It may seem strange to hear me saying this after I had won, but for some reason I felt like I'd have been more satisfied if Beatrice had been able to say definitely that it was impossible for humans. But there's something there that allows it to be possible for humans. Again, I do think there's there's a time and a place sort of case that goes on with these closed rooms that allow them to make sense, because that's how the chapel was set up. I managed to avoid specifics using an abstract piece called X, but I couldn't deny the sense that some eerie intent that must never be known was filling up this entire mansion. You know, these envelopes that they all had that go to the next room, it does remind me of in episode 2 how Rosa had an envelope with the key to the chapel. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they all had these envelopes before they died. In the real, in the real case of what went down, that could probably be the big connection to how things properly went down with people dying in these rooms. Maybe, I don't know. Or there's somebody else involved somehow, I don't know. I mean, if you add an extra person into the mix, how does that set up the loop? Does that, properly lock everybody into their positions? I don't know. This is a tough one, but in a really good way, I would argue. Alrighty. We'll call it with that one. We are on chapter 10. We are making goddamn progress. Yeehaw. And I hope I'm able to continue to follow along as I have. I've gotten a little busier with my life, but I think that's a good thing in a way. But that also makes it a little bit more difficult to use maximum brain power for this. So if it looks like I'm a little weak in some cases, I'm totally down for the hints. Maybe not immediately. I do love the comments I get, and I hope I continue to get them. If there's things I should know by now, but it looks as if I've kind of forgotten about them, please, feel free to let me know in the comments. But honestly, it's been good. I'm excited to continue forward. I don't think we're halfway through this episode, I feel. I mean, we're in the big, long-ass day where deaths are just going to be right around the corner. But I feel like we've got a little bit to go to really cement in episode 3. But thank you for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.